calmed his mind, controlled his ego-active tendencies, rajas, and purged himself of desire, thereby attaining oneness with Brahma, the infinite spirit. Thus, through Holy Scripture, God has spoken to mankind. Om. Om. Om.
Well, it's very simple, isn't it? That's all we have to do. I love the words of this, and I guess it's kind of it's like this story of being a sinner and then returning, and as the little human in us always feels that there's got to be a retribution or this evil force that comes and grabs us, this burning in hell and hellfire and all kinds of things, and to go back to really the essence of what existence is, and it's this, the Sanskrit term for God, which is Satchidananda, which is eternal being or truth. So just in those words alone, I think we skip over it a little bit. Eternal being or truth, so interacting, and then which is the Sat, and then the infinite consciousness, which is Chit, which means infinite consciousness is center everywhere, circumference nowhere. It means we are all a part of that. And then ever new bliss, which is ever existing, means that he's eternal. Ever conscious means he is always conscious of his eternal existence. And ever new bliss means that he is joy that never grows stale. And we go through life thinking that we are separate. And realistically, that is the true definition of sin, which is that separate identification. And many of the talks, including the Gita that we studied on Wednesday night, is we have this separateness or this vision of separateness. And lots of scriptures talk about and use ocean as the example, how the ocean is ever existing and we're realistically this part of the wave. And as the wave rises, it's still connected, but we see ourselves as separate. And often we live in these three parts of the wave, which is the up above, and we see ourselves completely separate. And then so everything that we do becomes feeling that we're a different or apart, like a separateness as far as not just sinning, but also in our finding joy and finding a peace. We see it through the worldly things that we see and do. It's the connection to, hey, wow, the beach is beautiful today. It's nice and sunny. I love the beach. But if you go to the beach on a wet, miserable day with, 200 kilometre an hour southerly wind, do you still feel that beach is that? And it's because we're looking at it from a separate point of view. We're looking at it as that thing is bringing us the joy. And yet we have it within us all the time. So the real sin through all of these is the connection with the outside world. It's like I've been given the riches through that story, and then I'm running with it. And then you run with all those riches feeling that you're taking advantage of them in every day. And we'll, it's a worldly thing. We see people that start earning money and it's like, I have good intent, but out of that comes greed, or I need more, or and then the happiness dwindles when there's, either the stress of maintaining the money or the energy that is required to maintain it, or the threat of it being taken away all the time, because none of it is everlasting, whereas true existence is always there. And throughout that, Master's quote, the greatest sin is to call yourself a sinner. It's the fact that you're still, by calling yourself a sinner in this essence, you're still promoting the idea of separateness, because you're literally saying, well, I'm the sinner that's doing this. Where if you look at the true definition of Satchidananda, is that we are all a part of creation, and creation was formed to entertain the one and only being, and that was the separateness, and that the idea of entertainment, which created the dark and light. And of course, all those sinful things really gave us that point of being at rock bottom, if you like, but always to return. Well, what am I missing? It's that thought of, well, what do I need to do, or where do I need to be in relation to becoming one? And that allegory of coming home and always being welcome and celebrated is getting yourself really out of the road to become a part of that Satchidananda and be celebrated for that. And that's where the greatest riches all come from, is coming home. And we hear that all the time in relation to putting that energy, or getting the ego out the road to allow the shining of Satchidananda to come through us. And it's welcomed. I mean, welcoming's kind of even a bit separate in itself, but it's becoming part of what we actually are and recognizing that we aren't separate, we are that. And we can keep going on through our life feeling that we are separate, but that is the true sin in all things. And I guess out of all of that, well, what do we need to do in relation to each day to really, we've been given these great toolkits to dissolve the delusion of separateness, and that's through meditation, all these amazing things. But one of the greatest tools that Swami told us about was that self-reflection. You know, just before you go to bed, you're offering up your day, good, bad, or indifferent. I mean, if you think about the true term in itself, there is no such thing as good or bad in this essence, but every day we should offer up to God and get ourselves out the road for what we need to be.
And so that was beautifully shared, Nara. And just one of the things that comes to mind as far as how can we take this Sunday and let it infuse our week with Satchidananda. And so we can all challenge ourselves. What would my day be like if I were to realize that Satchidananda is me? My essence is ever new, ever conscious, ever existing bliss. And so how would that feel to then notice, when do you go outside that? And when you do, is your first inclination to feel guilt, to feel ashamed? Or do you remember and recall, no, I can come back to the bliss, because the bliss is acting in, so a beautiful thing Swami said is, love is bliss in motion. And when he would walk into a room, that's what you would feel. You would feel that love is coming through the door. Love is looking you in the eyes. Love is smiling at you, because Swami was bliss. He was identified with freedom in that eternal state. So when he would go into the world, when he wasn't in a state of samadhi and meditation, he would be love. And so if we feel that we've slowed down enough to recognize those subtle moments where we have the opportunity to say, am I still living in love? Am I still living in joy? Or have I returned away from home? But if you can remind yourself not to feel bad when you've wandered, and instead focus on, as this reading talks about, the celebration of coming back to your center. Celebrate your wins. In psychology and self-management, they talk about this a lot. If you want to really affect change in yourself, focus on positive reinforcement. And even if it's incremental, we all have heard this story of the 1% challenge. Like, if you can just focus on something that you improve 1% and you positively reinforce that little bit of improvement, and then you celebrate your wins, then before you know it, your life will be filled with the things that help us return to our center. And we've been given, this path has amazing things that we can do every day just to live more in our center and more from that state of Satchidananda. And we have the truth that has been given to us through Yogananda, but it's an eternal truth because bliss is eternal. And all the yogis and great sages and saints have done is remember that truth because they've returned home. And so the things that we all know, we practice our meditation even 15 minutes a day. We serve somebody else. We do something for somebody in our life that we come across, whether it is smiling at a stranger or helping a child with their homework. We introspect, like Swamiji shares, and as Nara pointed out, if we want to know where have we gone out from the center, we have to do our practice of introspection. We have our daily exercise. We have our daily diet. All these things that we can be doing, listening to music. We need to remember the simple things that we can do in our life. And then the more we repeat them with celebration, I meditated today. We should all be celebrating. That's a great accomplishment. And every day that we do that and we celebrate our wins on the spiritual path, think about where you'll be in a year from now, in 5 years from now, in 10 years from now, or as a lot of people throughout Ananda have shown us, 50 years from now. We could all become centenarians, and in another 50 or another 60 or 70 years from now, think of who you could become if you celebrate all the moments that you remained in your center and you lived like you are Satchidananda. So if we go to bed at night and we wake up in the morning and we bring that thought in, this is my reality, I'm coming home, and you just bring that into your life, it will just change you, and you'll find that there's so much joy that you don't even have to feel like you're trying hard anymore. It just becomes a part of you. And you've seen your brain has changed. It's been filled with light, as we were sharing at our study group. Let thine eye be single and thy whole being be filled with light. So that's where we're heading. And then when we get there, it'll be a celebration. And there's a song that we sing at Ananda that some of you haven't heard yet, but a lot of you have. We sing it when we're getting ready to say goodbye to somebody, when they go off like to India or to the US, or sometimes we do it at the end of our retreats and we're all going home. And at the end it says, may we be one in that light someday. And so if you think about it, that's what the Father is saying to the Son is, you're coming home is returning to the light together. And so that's what we get to do as a spiritual family is help each other remember and celebrating coming home. So thank you all for
I just thought I'd add to that.
Okay.
We need that will, though, that free will, and the greater the will, like we need to put energy behind that will. Like we have to be determined that we want to return. And a part of that is incredible. Kalamali and I watched a show on this marathon swimmer at age 60, failed an attempt to swim from where was it, in Cuba to Florida. It was a 48-hour swim, and they failed it under 30 years of age, but at 60 returned and then had 4 attempts at over 60 to complete this swim. But at not one point did they ever feel that they couldn't do it, and just kept, and at the detriment of friendship and determination. We both commented on this, Will, and we both looked at each other at the same time and went, could you imagine if you put that amount of willpower into finding God? It was just incredible. And that's what people, the saints, have done. Yoganandas and all those that have been enlightened, they've not wavered in their belief that they could do it, regardless of the environment around them, but completely took on the willpower to completely put that energy behind it. And it was such an important element. It was like an aha moment, wasn't it? Wow, imagine if we just gave up everything to do this.
So let's just take a moment before we go into our sing-along and just close your eyes for a moment, and let's just feel in our hearts what it would feel like to give our everything to returning home and the celebration of a soul being reunited with spirit. And just feel the joy, the divine joy. You can even feel yourself smile. You can take in a deep breath and let it straighten your spine and lift your heart. And then feel how that would help the whole world for one person to come home, one being to be able to share bliss in motion. And then we'll just rub our hands together and we'll send out 3 ohms just to end this chapter of our service together, sending this vibration out into the world. Peace. Amen. So thank you, everyone. And I'm going to say, handing it over to Anju, who's going to lead us in the sing-along portion. And let's see here. I'm going to stop the recording.